Good afternoon. We want to go ahead and call the Griffin-Spalding County Board of Education public hearing for the purpose of the millage rate. I ask that we get a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion by Mr. Dawson. We get a second.
Second.
Got a second by Ms. Cook. Okay, Mr. Brown back. All in favor, vote by raising your right hand. 5-0. Thank you. Thank you. We're turning it over again to Mr. Byron Jones and our superintendent, Mr. Simmons, for whatever information they deem necessary to pass on to us. The floor is yours, Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jones?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Since this is the third and final millage rate hearing and you're going to actually adopt the millage rate tonight, if you'd like me to do a brief overview of this, I will. It's at your pleasure, Superintendent. Okay.
Brief.
Okay. So the slideshow that we're presenting, this is another version of this morning and last week. Again, there's two changes. One, the cover page indicates it's September 21st. Lonnie's going to pull it up for me and run it as a PDF and flip it for me. Okay. Bear with me just a second.
Can I ask if we have anyone that is signed up for public comments? Okay, so we do have one. Have you seen the presentation? Okay, just making sure that how much explanation that you needed, I was just making sure.
I think you should, for the people that are home watching this,
All right, you ready, Lonnie? Yes. Okay. Cover page date change is September 21st. Go ahead to the next one. So again, communicating effectively on our strategy map is what we're trying to do tonight. And as I've told you at the earlier meeting today, there's been 6 different times, including the meeting that you'll vote on next, that the board can ask questions or see the recommendation of the superintendent. As I also told you this morning, I did a town hall with Mr. Brown last week and took questions. We had a question from a constituent that I actually took last night as well. So we've had several people that have called me directly that we've tried to respond to. All right, Lonnie. The fiscal responsibilities in our strategy map, the second slide here, is again, in education, we're kind of asked to spend 65% or so of our revenues or expenses in instruction, and that's what we aim to each year. So when we're talking about tax revenues and state revenues and federal, we always try to aim to put that in the classroom. Background information, you passed a budget on June 15, 2021, and that budget called for usage of some federal monies to help balance the budget at the time. We all knew at that time that the tax digest and assessments were not complete. As a quick review of that, those are normally done in the spring. There's mail notices by law have to go to everybody. They used to only go to people who had their property reassessed every year, but they now go to everyone. And then there's, I believe, 45 days to appeal those assessments when they go out. And when they go out, they always have the current millage rate on them. So those assessments, I haven't seen one, but I'm assuming that those assessment notices would have contained the 16.742 since it's the same as the prior year. A review of the terms. Lonnie, go to the next one. Ad valorem tax, we went through this last week. That's the amount that is your property tax, and it's in a couple of different entities, whether you're in the city or the county or the school. The school probably makes up 65% of the tax bill of the constituents. That's in every county. This county's one of, I'm going to say about 16 to 20 that have a senior exemption of some nature. So that's really limited in our state. When I've traveled the state, that's something to be proud of here that you've been able to do that, but it's not everywhere. And again, our ad valorem tax, we'll see it in a minute, has gone from 19 or so to potentially low 16s over the last 7 or 8 years. Certified tax digest, that's what Sylvia Hollums will take normally by August the 1st, but this year it may be October the 1st to Atlanta to get certified. Those bills will then get mailed to the taxpayers. You got 60 days to pay after that. So the normal deadline in the county probably is going to be compromised a little bit of when the taxes are due. Now, levying authority, that's Griffin-Spalding County Board of Education. Go ahead, Lonnie, the next one. Mill just means one meal in the county is, for school is about $1.7 million. $1.7 million times the millage rate will give you approximately $28.7 million. That's just some quick math if you hear a mill to understand what that's talking about. Millage rate, if the board did decide to roll back, your millage rate would be 16.110. We're proposing again that it stay at 16.742. Millage equivalent, the difference in those two numbers I just quoted is .632. That would be the amount of the rollback if the board decided to do that. The net assessed value, so the total property values in the county, 1.7 billion, not million, that's with a B. Again, divide that by 1,000, you get to the value of a mill. Recommending authority, again, similar term to a while ago, is Griffin-Spalding County Board of Education. Rollback rate, again, the difference in the two rates we've been talking about for the last few weeks is the .632. The county's rolled back for the last 6 years in a row. And when you roll back, again, you still receive the amount of building improvements for certain things in the county, but you don't receive the full amount of the assessment increases. So that's really the net key to remember when you hear talking about that terminology. Your 5-year tax digest, which really is the current year proposed and 5-year historical, this is required 10 to 14 days before your vote tonight to be advertised in the paper. Again, we've been focusing on the far right-hand column to see that $28.7 million represents a 6.8% increase over the prior year. $1.8 million is approximately the amount that the school board would receive versus the last year. That's minus a tax collection fee of 2.5% for the tax commissioner's office, and then a potential 1 to 2% for uncollectibles if we have a taxpayer that can't pay their bill for whatever reason that year, or gets a financing arrangement or whatever that Ms. Holland's office may offer. So again, if you decided to roll back the millage rate, the difference in not rolling back and rolling back is going to be approximately $1 million for the school board, minus any tax collection fee on the $1 million.
And Mr. Jones, I know what I had asked you earlier today. I know they can only charge us that 2.5% on the collection. It's not going to be an addition to what they already charge us. But did you get an amount, or have we come up with an amount that we're projected to have to pay them for collecting?
So
taxes?
So 2.5% on 28 million is approximately 700,000. If you go to the exact number on the page, you're talking about 720,000.
Yeah.
And again, as a reminder, the tax commissioner's office has the right to charge up to 2.5%.
Right.
They don't have to charge up to
They don't
that,
have
but
to
they can't charge
2.5%.
more.
Right.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what the statute says, up to
Yes, sir.
2.5%.
So you look,
go ahead.
you're looking in that range of 700, 650 to 700. If it was a rollback rate, you'd be taking that value on 28 million versus 28.7. So the 28.7, which is on the far right-hand column of what Lonnie's showing you,
Right.
is about $720,000.
Okay, I just wanted you to verbalize that for those who may be listening. Also, Mr. Jones, I've had people to inquire about school board raising taxes, and you kind of put it in the background section on this memorandum that we have. Could you kind of explain to them how, if they see a tax increase, how that works as far as reassessment and with us adopting the millage rate at 16.742, how that works? Could
Yeah.
you?
I can speak now, or I've got that example that
Okay.
I can show. the
Okay,
130.
you get to it when you get to it.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, the next form is what the superintendent will sign this evening, pending the school board's decision. This is a kind of 3/4 of the form, hard to read, but it's a yellow required form, and it shows the difference of the reassessments and the millage rate. The reassessment of existing real property is in your $80 million range of the county, minus some exemptions. So that's the amount that you'd be potentially removing a portion of that if you roll back. But that, from year to year, again, every county is required to reassess a certain amount, whether it's a quarter or a third, et cetera. So that's what the purpose of this form is. The next slide is some trend data we went over last meeting. Millage rates for the school board back to 2012. Again, I had shared with you all last week that there's a 20 mil cap on what we call M&O, maintenance and operations. That's the school board millage rate for regular activities. Now, before SPLOST was around, there was a bond millage rate, which some school districts still have that. So you do have some at 20 mils for this and a 1.5 for another. So the property tax owner in those counties is bearing a huge burden, and they probably have eSPLOST in addition to that. So again, we don't have any bond millage here, and this gives you the progression of rollbacks over the last 6 years on the right-hand column. These are some surrounding counties, 2 counties that I've been previously at I wanted to share with you as well, and then you've got our RESA districts in here as well, some higher than us as far as population, some lower. There are a couple of counties that have a lower millage rate. The majority of them have a higher millage rate. I think I pointed out last meeting, if I'm not mistaken, Fayette and Henry both have a bond millage rate. I believe that's what I was told, definitely from Henry. Any questions on that? I mean, that gives you a little historical data. Each county has their own challenges.
Could you give us the max that the millage rate could go to?
It's going to be 20 unless you have some legislative approval for certain circumstances like,
Thank you.
and I don't know Rockdale, Muskogee, again, they have a consolidated government concept. I'm not sure how that affects the school board down there, but they've had that for years.
But traditionally, it is 20.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay.
Okay, these next 2 slides was new last time. It was a property value comparison. In the newspaper, the section on the left, we advertise for a $100,000 home. You take a 40% value and you get $40,000. And this does not consider homestead exemptions or any senior exemptions, so this is just kind of a raw example. You'd have a $40 value and you take that times your millage rate to get $669. If you roll the millage rate back to 16.110, you'd be at $644.40. The difference of the 25.28 is what we advertised in the paper as the difference with what the rollback rate would produce. The amount on the right is simply a doubling of that for $200,000 home. You would simply triple it or quadruple it if you go up in the value of that home that particular year. And then there's a blurb at the bottom that talks about that, which I'll talk about reassessments here on the next slide. Does everybody have a good grasp of this $40, 40% ratio?
I get a good grasp of it every year in November.
Well, you're going to get longer this year.
Yeah, gonna get longer this year.
The next example was an attempt last week to bring a little clarity to reassessments. It can be very confusing, and even in all these years I've been around, I still learn something every year, it seems like. So the one on the left, the property is the $100,000 home. The difference of the 25.28 is if you rolled the taxes back. If you received a reassessment of a $30,000 increase, so the $100,000 home jumps to $130,000, which is a sizable increase. I shared with y'all last meeting that mine over the years went up a couple $1,000s if they did in a particular year. If somebody hadn't been reassessed in many years, or there was a sale of the property and they had a reason to look at that community, maybe it would have jumped like that. So in our example, the 130 would take still the 40%. That new number would be 52,000. 52,000 divided by that 1,000 we talked about gives you $52, and you take that times the 2 millage rates, roll back or leaving the same to see what those values are. So somebody who was paying $669.68 and received an assessment increase of $30,000 would see their property tax bill increase to $870.58. I mean, that's going to happen regardless of your decision. Your decision-making authority only would impact a $32.86 reduction of that assessment increase. And that's something, again, that's confusing. It doesn't eliminate the entire assessment increase. All right, the next few slides are our ads that we, by law, and I've been asked this several times, we do not have any maneuvering, any lowering of the size of the digit. This is by law, has to be no smaller than a 30-inch ad in the paper, and you have to call it a notice of property tax increase if you are approving anything above a rollback of taxes. So if you approve a rollback, somebody who didn't receive an assessment increase will have their taxes lowered for the 7th year in a row. If you roll back for somebody that did receive an assessment increase, on that 130, they're going to get a $32.86 decrease. Those represent 3.92% when you go and do those calculations. So the reason for or not for rolling back looks at the total amount of revenue, not the individual homeowner, when it comes up with the 3.92%. It's saying the school board, not that they shouldn't, but if they're going to receive a dollar more, a penny more because of assessments, they got to call it an overall tax increase. Okay, Lonnie? The next one is what ran in the paper last week, same ad, has to run 7 days prior to having a public hearing. And the next to last slide is simply where we're at tonight, or next to, I'm sorry. Here's our press release. We also have to publish this to the Griffin Daily News. They do not have to publish it. I know that there was some question last meeting about an ad that I wasn't aware of on the front page, and I worked with Adam a little bit on this. I don't believe that the yellow part was included in that where it talked about assessments. I'm going to check one more time, but I think that was left out. That's an important lesson to learn for community members to understand if there's a millage rate discussion. If you leave out the assessment increase piece, that's vital, because that's what the school board has kind of control on what they're voting over on that rate. So again, we're glad for the transparency. This is on our website. I'm glad we received the press and the newspaper. In a do-over next year, we'll give it to them and we'll ask them to make sure they print the yellow part. So lesson learned on that. Timeline, we're in the yellow. We keep moving it down. So you've had two. The second public hearing is where we're at right now. At 6:30, you'll have your millage rate adoption. I've started prepping the materials for tomorrow to give to Mr. Ledbetter at the county and Ms. Hollums in her office. And then at that point, there will be a county commissioner meeting in the next few days, I'm sure, to ratify our millage rate. Last slide is my contact information. As I've said before, even after this decision, I'm happy to continue to talk to people in person, virtually, whatever the situation is, if there's some questions that come up. So that concludes the presentation. Is there any questions that the board has that I can answer?
Any questions, board members? No questions?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a comment. Number one, thank you, Mr. Simmons. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for actually filling us in, so to speak, on a lot of things that I was unaware of. I appreciate the education, so to speak, and I just wanted to publicly thank you and thank you, Mr. Simmons, because I think from my peers here that I've spoken to, and obviously I've spoken to all of them, I think we're all a little bit more clear about this process, so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Also, I just want to make a comment to Mr. Jones. Thank you so much for making sure that we're educated and able to speak to the issue. And thank you so much for taking time out to do the virtual town hall meeting last week for District 1.
Yes, sir.
Greatly appreciate you.
Any other board members? Anything else?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Right now, we'll go ahead and we have one that I know of that's signed up for public comment. If you would please approach the podium and give your name, address, and you can proceed. And Lundy will give you your 5 minutes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm just going to do this. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
My name is Christine Thomas. I live at 400 North Rover Road. For all of you guys at home, there's nobody here. That's kind of very disappointing. So anyway, I'm just going to address some issues. Some people said that online I'm posting this, and they're saying, what about the children? Why do you not want to help the children? Well, this is my response to them about that. Why should we have to spend more out of our money as taxpayers when GCS has received $124 million this year, and including $30 million for COVID relief, and that is actually tax money as well. There are people here in this is our own community who are being evicted today, who don't have enough to eat because of what happened with the COVID, and who have lost everything because of forced government shutdowns or whatever else with the COVID. And GSCS wants more of our money, and from people who are on a fixed budget and can't afford these millage rate increases. And this has nothing to do with the taking from our children, because Spaulding County has 67,000 residents, and we have about 97 to, I tried to get the numbers directly, but I couldn't. It was from 9,700 to 10,000 students in the system, and we pay a higher stipend per pupil than state average, and some schools actually pay almost up close to 11,000 per student in GCS. And he was looking at that rollback or that spreadsheet, and so you say that it's not really going to hurt anybody because it's $31 or whatever, but it's, you went from 1.8% last year to over 6% this year, or this is what it's going to increase if you adopt it. That's went from $491,000 to $1.8 million. That is a $1.3 million difference. And you need more money. And you have not increased proficiencies, and the school grade for many, many years has been a D, and you're going to do another E-SPLOST in November, I'm sure of it. I think I read that on you're going to put it up for voting. And the millage, and it's not just your millage rates that are increasing. The city is increasing theirs. They say a rollback, and they do some sort of double speak, and they're trying to, tell people, but it's not really an increase. Well, if I pay more money based on my property value, it is an increase. So we have the county, we have the school, and we have the city. If you happen to live in the city, all of our millage rates are going to increase, and those people who can't afford on a fixed budget, who are already struggling out there, are going to be even struggling further this next year because of all these millage rate increases. 1 penny is considered an increase, regardless of rollback or not. And I believe that GSCS, having so much money, have a $94 million budget, fiscal budget, that's just a lot of money. And now you're asking us who don't have the luxury of getting all that relief from last year, that are we're poor. A lot of these people are poor. I'm not saying I am pertaining to me, but there's a lot of people that I know that have asked me for help, and I try to do what I can for them. Also, you're asking the reason why this happened to my hometown. The reason why your property values is going up is because you're inviting Hollywood here. Hollywood's coming. Hollywood's coming with a lot of money. And you talk about gentrification. You're worried about it now. You're gonna be worried about it when they decide they're coming. They're coming, and they're buying up all the property around here, and they can afford to because they have to pay capital gains tax in 2 years or whenever they have to pay it. And so they're increasing the property values of people, and they're pushing people out. And where do the people go? So now the people have to decide, where do I go? My whole point is, when is enough enough? When do you guys have to live in your budget? Because we all, as taxpayers and constituents, have to live in ours. And it's not fair to the people, all of us. And the children, they're not being failed as far as money-wise, I don't believe. I don't know why they're being failed for the deficit education. I'm not sure about that. But I think we owe it to everybody, that at least the taxpayers, that we should have a break, at least from, the amount of money, that $94 million budget, that is for 67,000 people with 10,000 people and students. That's ridiculous. Thank you. You let me talk.
Board members, if there's no other further comments or presentations, I'll allow the opportunity just for anyone that wants to comment on this millage rate process or what it has entailed, because at 6:30, we have another meeting, and we'll need to quickly get to that. But is there any other comments, anything from any board members? No comments? Okay, we do have one item for executive session. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, we don't have anything for the, for executive session at this meeting, but we will have something for the, executive session for the 6:30 meeting. And I will say, and I can't, I like for people to have facts and information. I will say that, sometimes the school system get, I don't want to say credit, but it's assumed that it's something that we have control of, and we don't. The school system doesn't have any control over reassessment. The school system doesn't have anything to do with that. And what 25 or 30% of taxpayers will be affected by reassessment. And that's why they'll see their taxes go up. School system has nothing to do with that. That's a county issue. And I have to say that because people look and think the school board has something to do with it, and we don't. And I just want to make that clarification. And I thank Mr. Jones and for the presentation and the education piece. And I hope some people are better informed about the millage rate and this tax assessment and everything for this process that we've gone through. But let's deal with facts and just keep it at that level. And I think we'll be better citizens for it. With that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn because we do have a 6:30 meeting, and we need to go ahead. We got about 2 or 3 minutes. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Get a second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? 5-0. We adjourn. We'll take a 1 or 2 minute break, then we'll get right into our 6:30 meeting.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Sounds good. You're on key. Do you like to sing? Thank you.
Yeah, I was trying to pull a coattail.
Yes.
I want to go ahead and call to order. Call to order the 6:30 Griffin-Spalding County Board of Education millage rate adoption meeting. and we will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? 5-0. All right. Mr. Byron Jones, you're on again, brother.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Board. The Board of Education annually adopts a millage rate for property tax purposes each year based on local revenue needs reflected in the school system budget and the total taxable value of property in Spaulding County. A proposed millage rate has been advertised for the required period of time, and 3 public hearings have been conducted. The superintendent, through the Board of Education, at this time recommends that you adopt a millage rate of 16.742 mills for 2021 property tax bills.
All right. We'll.
For those listening, could we read the next paragraph also? Is that? Can we
And
do
the-
that?
I'll be glad to. Remember that in the morning. The hammer.
We're going to test you, brother.
All right, the Board of Education at its June 15, 2021 meeting adopted a budget that included a millage rate of 16.742 mills for 2021 property tax bills, holding the rate constant. The tax commissioner has calculated and released the 2021 tax digest, which includes a significant increase in values for reassessed properties. The reassessment of existing real property takes into account current sales of property as well as other market conditions in order to place a new adjusted value on properties. With that being said, it's recommended that the Griffin-Spalding Board of Education adopt a millage rate of 16.742 mills for 2021 property tax bills. This would be the same millage rate as the prior year.
Say that last sentence again, brother.
This would be the same millage rate as the prior year. No millage rate increase for school tax purposes.
Thank you, sir. Board members, you've heard the summary and the recommendation. What's your pleasure? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion by Mr. Doss.
Second.
Got a second by Ms. McDonald. All in favor? We got 4. All opposed? 1. Ms. Cook. Let the record show. 4-1. Ms. Cook opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda. Can we get a motion to accept it as presented? Got a motion by Mr. Brown. Can we get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dawes. All in favor? 5-0. 5-0. Next, we'll have a human resource personnel action by. Want to do that first? Okay. We will, at the prompting of our superintendent, go into executive session for the purpose of to discuss or deliberate upon the employment of personnel, and then we'll come back in session and we'll pick up with personnel action by Mr. Simmons. Can we get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Got a motion, can we get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dawes, all in favor? 4, all opposed? Yes.
If you want to add something to the, if you want to add something for executive session that deals with personnel, how do you go about doing that?
Well, we can, Mr. Simmons will come over and see where you want to, and we can add it on the list of items that we need to address.
I want to add another item to discuss employment of personnel in executive session added to what's already there.
I mean, what you want is up under that heading.
Yes.
We don't need to add it, then we can just discuss it. All in favor? 5-0. We're hereby in executive session. I guess we'll meet in the small meeting room upstairs, and we'll reconvene here for the remainder of the agenda.
That was not about executive session.
I was trying to get her to understand that we don't have anything on the November ballot, but you don't get to talk to her. Now, that'll be the last time I will attempt to. But I asked her, I said, you need to go back and change your page to show correct information because this school system has nothing on the November ballot. She didn't even know the difference between E-SPLOS and T-SPLOS.
Are you gonna need Norman in the morning? 'Cause he was talking. Okay. Okay. Bunch of the current CDL holders. But you still need monitors in the morning, though? What you saying?
Yeah, 'cause that's what, and really, truly, after probably just a week,
Please stop calling me.
So this lady's contacted you about the matter?
Now, so, for example, we voted to come back into open session after our executive session, so we'll pick back up with our agenda item, which is human resource personnel action. Mr. Keith Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, at this time, I'd like to make the recommendation for Ms. Judy Battle to be named the new Executive Director of Human Resources upon the impending retirement from Mrs. Stephanie Dobbins.
Board members, you've heard the recommendation. Your questions have been answered. Could I get a motion to accept the recommendation or reject it?
Motion to superintendent's recommendation.
Motion to accept by Mr. Brown. Do we get a second?
Second.
Got a second by Mr. Doss. All in favor, please vote by raising your right hand. 5-0. Thank you, board members. We've already had our executive session. Is there any comments, pending comments from any board member before we go? I know Mr. Doss ain't got none. Anybody else? No.
Mr. Leader, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to speak for board member comments. I just want to give a shout out to John Henry Moore Elementary for their kickoff with It's the College for Me. Shout out to Dr. Brody, Ms. Rojas, and the rest of those committee members who took the vision and made it just absolutely amazing. With planned activities, with personalized video messages from colleges to the scholars. They also had the AKAs from, I think it was Albany State, that did a tutorial for the young ladies on how to stroll. And just seeing them so excited about colleges. If you went to them and you asked them, for example, Dr. Sauce donated shirts. And so the young man had the shirt on, and I said, "Where's that shirt from?" He said, "University of Southern California." "Where is that?" "It's in Southern California." What would you like to study there? And he was just able to tell me all this information. If it was a liberal arts college, a HBCU, and so I just want to give a shout out to Moore Elementary and their staff for supporting the vision and making it what it is today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I want to reiterate something that Mr. Simmons shared with me with our transportation department. I can't say enough about all of our staff, just highlighting the transportation because we know the opportunities that they've had to face. But to those that don't know, Mr. Simmons told me that there were transportation employees who had finished their routes and called and asked to see if there was anything else they can do to assist those other routes. And I told him that was just dedication and commitment at its best. So I just want to say that, highlight all of our staff for welcoming our babies back in a 5-star quality way, and especially the transportation as we all work through the opportunities that we have. With that said, nothing else, we are hereby adjourned. Thank you.